This is really the golden era of insurance. And if you don't capitalize on the next 4 to 6 years, there may not ever be a time in the industry that's better than this. The first lesson that I want to share with you guys are really lucky to have an opportunity like this. Really cool with what you guys have built here. The community aspect is really awesome to see. That's one thing I wish I would have done earlier, is going from a producer to an owner mindset, which comes with tracking numbers. So for you guys, as you guys pivot from an agent to an agency owner, it's so important to track your numbers, because I was running my business based on feelings and emotions rather than logic. Political or not, if you are trying to build a business and sell, this is the golden time. Because right now in insurance, we are in a consolidation period where there's been a lot of people that have come in and only a few are gonna rise. Only a few are actually going to make money. But there's other opportunities that I've gotten in paid advice to people who are doing millions per month in their businesses at 25, 26 years old. And they're like, dude, it's insane what you can actually do in life insurance because of how the business is actually structured. For sure. Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and Dylan obviously having me as well. I'm trying to get a lay of the land. Like, who of you guys are you guys all just solo producing agents? Are you guys agency owners? Like, who's an agency owner here at all? You are? Anybody else? You are? Cool. And then everybody else solo producers, just producing on your own pen? Cool. And then second question is the goal for you guys, because typically when you guys are at like 40 to 50,000 a month, I'll bring that down maybe 30,000 a month. There's kind of a split path that you go down. Either one, you can go higher from, like, you start at final expense, simplified issue term, then you go to more so an IUL or annuity, or you start selling more higher ticket. Is the goal to be a producer for a while, or is the goal to be a builder? Like, what if you guys are a builder, like the goal is to build a team? Raise your hand just for me real quick. Cool, the goal is to build a team? Cool. All right, sweet. So that's exactly what I'm gonna be talking about, because that's really the goal, and that's like what I found. So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Johnny Nitafan, and I've been an agent for like 3 years now. And I wanted to start, number one, with the big lessons that I learned my first year as an agent, because I messed up a lot. I'm just gonna stand because my energy is way better standing. I think I made a lot of mistakes when I just got started in the industry. I remember when I got in, I was cold door knocking all around here in the Phoenix area. I was just married, just got out of Starbucks, and I was just cold door knocking business to business to business, listening to Cody Askins interviews, listening to a John Wetmore, listening to, which is cool that he's able to speak here as well, but listening to all these people, like, okay, there is something bigger that I can actually accomplish if I actually put in the work. And I started B2B, but I didn't even know that you could buy leads at all. And so that's when I was like, okay, there's an unlock here that I don't have to cold door knock 30 to 40 businesses per month or per day. I can maybe just work leads. And so 3 months in, I was newly married, just got into the industry, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to start selling life insurance. So I go to my wife at this point, and I'm like, I could make like, I mean, I'm 20 at this point, by the way. I'm like, I can make $20,000 to $30,000 per month just working from home. And she's like, it's a pyramid scheme. Like, there's no way. And I was like, all right, okay. But I was like, no, there was a little confidence there that was like lost. I was like, there's a little bit of the conviction that I had by listening to these interviews. I go to her and I tell her, and she's like, no. And so that kind of crushed me a little bit. I kept going, kept doing my thing. My third month in, wrote $30,000 in premium with it. This is employee benefits, by the way, not life insurance at all. And I got paid $1,500, and I was like, dude, this is crazy, because the amount of work, the amount of hours I'm doing, I'm not great by any means, but I'm putting in a lot of activity. I'm hearing these people doing leads. So anyways, I go back to my wife and I tell her, like, hey, this is like, I want to do this. I'm ready to go. And I closed the deal, which was nice. But anyways, I got her to like be like, yo, we're on board. So anyways, I get into life insurance, and 5 weeks in, I get onto the Ultimate Agent reality TV show. And that was an amazing thing and also a not amazing thing, because what happened, and you guys, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but essentially I'm like 5 weeks into the industry, have sold one policy in the field, never sold anything over the phone, and now I'm on this reality TV show where people they fly me in a private jet, there's like cameras everywhere, which is awesome, but I'm competing against these people that have been producers for a while. Long story short, a lot of like, it was just a lot to take in when I was 20 years old at the time. I couldn't even drink on the jet. Everybody was popping champagne and I'm like, got a water. But that was a lot because I remember getting into the industry and I started at Symmetry Financial Group, if any of you guys know. Ew. And that's actually where I met Max. But anyways, the first lesson that I want to share with you guys, because I know some of you guys may be in your first year. I was telling Dylan this before. You guys are really lucky to have an opportunity like this. And the reason I share that is because I told Dylan, if I would have started in the industry under Dylan, I probably would have left by now. Probably 3 months, 4 months in, because that's what I did. I was at 5 IMOs my first 12 months. Like, that's just horrible. Don't do that by any means. But anyways, that was the first thing, is like identifying a good opportunity when you actually find one. Like, what you guys have is really, really cool with what you guys have built here. The community aspect is really awesome to see. So I think that's number one, is if you guys have seen top comps or you see all this stuff or whatever, you guys have great comps, by the way. But when you hear all these things, like, just don't fall for it. Like, there's so much, not everything that glitters is gold, all right? So that's number one. It's a very simple thing, but I think for you guys is identifying a good opportunity when you find it. Like, that was a mistake that I made early on. Number two is, I remember 9 months in, I sold $350,000 my first 9 months, and I was going broke. I mean, I don't know, it's a common thing in the industry because I was just submitting bad business. I did $100,000 a month in 1 month, and it was just like this crazy thing on my own pen, and it was like, I'm going broke. Like, this is just horrible. And so I remember in that moment being broke, $15,000 in debt. I'm like, I know a level of selling, but I don't know how to actually write good business. Like, I have to go back to the drawing board. It was just a weird thing because what happened was it was a little bit after the show. I was getting asked to speak at these on these agency calls, and I was like, I'm $15,000 in debt. Like, this is weird. And so I remember taking a step back. I was like, you know what? I need to just start making content about what's happening because this is weird. And there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are on top of the leaderboards doing the thing, but actually not making money. Like, this is weird. So I think it's really important for you guys, as you guys are producers, to track your numbers. Like, who of you guys are like religious about tracking your numbers? A few of you? Good. That's one thing I wish I would have done earlier, is going from a producer to an owner mindset, which comes with tracking numbers. Because if you guys think about it, I use this analogy and I like to think about it. Like, imagine Coca-Cola the CEO goes to their Q4 end of year 2024 meeting, and they're like, all right, how did we do this year? And he's like, I think we're doing all right. It's like, what are the numbers? And he's like, I think we did good. We had a pop, but like there was something bad. It's like, no, he should know his numbers, right? That CEO, if it's a girl, I don't know, but the CEO should know the numbers. And so for you guys, as you guys pivot from an agent, right, to an agency owner, it's so important to track your numbers, because I was running my business based on feelings and emotions rather than logic. And so the few metrics that you guys want to track is, and I have a lot of like videos and I have trackers that I can share with you guys. It's really important to track a few things on the marketing side and then the sales side. So if you guys are selling outbound telesales, number one for marketing, I'm gonna go a little bit into more tactical stuff right now. So for the marketing side, cost per lead is strongly irrelevant, right? If I were to ask you guys what's the number one thing, as a business, what is the number one thing would you say you should track?
Cost per acquisition.
Yeah. You shouldn't be able to answer. Yeah, cost per acquisition, but then there's another number that's strongly attached to that, right? Because if I had a $0 cost per acquisition, I'm cold door knocking, right? There's a few factors in there, right? So cost per acquisition, especially because I know you guys are buying leads or generating leads or whatever it is, cost per acquisition is really important, but also your lifetime value per client. Right? How much am I actually getting paid on this person? Because you could have a $150 cost to acquire or a $100 cost to acquire, but if you're only getting paid $150, that doesn't sound like a great trade at all, right? And so really having a good, solid, depending on what leads source you're working, having a solid 4 to 6x return on your placed business. If you guys have that and you guys are tracking those numbers, you guys are gonna prep to scale. So that's number one. Number two is, as you guys are moving from a solo producer to more so an agency owner, you got to pivot your hat from just going out to hunt. Like, your identity has to change. I remember it was really tough when I went and I was just a solo producer, but then I remember Max and I started working together, and then there was another dude, and we did $105,000 in issue paid that month with the three of us. And it was really cool because the challenge was really difficult, and a lot of you guys are gonna go through this, is when you guys are a solo producer, when you guys are making money, you have to continue to do that, right? But your identity has to change from going from, I'm gonna go hunt and kill today, to you're not gonna go hunt and kill one agent, right? You have to change into like a farmer. I like to, there was this analogy, Max and I were at an agency together, but your identity changes from going out and hunting every single day to going out and pouring the water on the crop, right? You pour the water again on the crop. You pour the water again and you continue to pour water on the agent that's gonna grow into something, and that's gonna feed you for a while. But you go out and kill, you continue to make your sales, but it's really, this is the most difficult times, because in this stage you're selling, but you have to pivot your hat really quick to continue, okay, I'm not gonna eat on this. I'm not gonna eat, but if I consistently show up and I pour in the water and I pour in the water and I pour in the water, I know it's going to grow. So you guys might not be in the position to, or wanting to recruit right now, right? But one of the biggest mistakes that I made my first 9 months is not making more content. Like, that was my biggest mistake. One of them that I really regret going back is I wish I would have made more content, right? And so if you guys are thinking in the future, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years down the line, I wish I would have like just started making more YouTube videos, right? Like, YouTube is one of the best platforms right now because people go on there and they want to learn, they want to grow, and they want to spend time, right? I talk to people and they'll show up and we'll get on a Zoom call or whatever, and I'm like, they're telling my story better than I remember it at times because I've said my story a lot, but they've also heard it and they know who I am, right? And so it's cool because YouTube, Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, but like TikTok's a great one. Like, building a social media presence is going to fuel your guys' growth long-term, right? And I think I lost the touch of, okay, there's power in relationships, there's power in one-to-one, there's power in getting in the room and getting in groups, because I've been so bullish on like just growing Instagram and growing YouTube and just growing my social presence rather than word of mouth is really powerful as well. But for you guys, that's one of my biggest regrets is not making content earlier. And so I'd recommend you guys just document your journey. Like, I imagine you guys probably, when you guys have all probably watched a YouTube video or two in the life insurance space at some point. Cody Askins, there's David Duford, Peter Roberts, there's a lot of different YouTubers out there that are making content. You guys probably know them, but you guys wouldn't know who they are if they weren't making content. And especially as you grow, you create your niche of one. So I'd highly recommend make content if you guys want to grow in the business. There's a few other things that I want to cover, and then we can kind of open it up to Q&A if you have any questions. I don't know is this valuable for you guys at all? Yeah. I hope so. Okay, cool. All right, so another thing is trying to scale too quickly. So I remember right when I cracked Facebook ads, it was like 2 years ago in January of 2023. I remember I went $15,000 into debt my first 9 months, and I remember making $23,000 in profit that next month. And I paid all that debt off with that. I spent it was crazy back then. It was like I spent like $1,800 and made $23,000 in profit, and then it was like $25,000 in commissions, right? It was just insane. And then the next month hit like right over 20. The next month hit $46,000 in commissions, did like 76,000 of issue paid over the phone. And so I remember in that time, I was like, all right, here we go. I'm ready to scale. Bring on the world, right? And I did that. And the next month, I think I issued like $15,000. And I think I tried to scale too quickly instead of laying the tracks and building the tracks, right? And so, but another piece of advice that I would give is when you guys are scaling, don't try to scale too quick, but take on 2 producers, 3 producers, and make sure that they're actually the right fit for you. You guys don't need them. They need you. You're the value that you're gonna bring them, right? You're gonna genuinely help them make a 6-figure, like they have a 6-figure opportunity. Act like it, right? Actually have that posture that you don't need them, right? You're not gonna take everybody. You actually have to see if you qualify for me to be able to help you. And if I can, great, let's run it up. So that also will prevent a lot of roll up from what I've heard. I haven't experienced that end of it, but I know that that's definitely something that as I try to grow, I remember my production just dropping in an instant. So I think Max is a really good example of this, is like just continuing to keep production up and then grow slowly, right? Bring in solid producers. And then the last thing I would say is partnerships is something I've been learning recently, is just how powerful getting in the room and just partnering. Like Dylan and I we just randomly started talking, and now like we're here, right? And so it's cool to be able to see partnerships bloom, because you never know who you're gonna be in the room with at some point. You never know who's gonna talk to whoever. You never know who's gonna do that. And if you can grow with partnerships, it'll really help accelerate your learning curve. Because I was just talking to a guy that he's doing about $2 million a month in issue paid, and there's one small thing that I do well that he's like, dude, I need your help on this. Well, he just offered me a partnership to help in his agency in a certain way, right? And so there's power in that, because now I deliver, I get referrals, I get clients, I help other people. So I think that's the thing. And then the very last thing that I'll do, and I'll open up to for Q&A, is as a producer, you don't have to understand and know the marketing, but understand it just enough to be dangerous. And what I mean is, like, don't try to do it. You can try to do it. I'll help you with it. But just be enough to be dangerous, because if you're not, you set yourself up, if you're not trusted with a good partner, you set yourself up to get screwed. And that's just the reality of it. You don't know how to speak to the metrics. You don't know how to speak to what's going on with the marketing side. And so I think for that, it's important to understand it a little bit and understand the concept, because as you guys grow into an organization, right, to a Dylan size and beyond, right, marketing is gonna be such a crucial part to your agency. So at least be able to speak to it, at least be able to help people with it. Not help people with, but at least be able to speak and say, this is good marketing, this is bad, this is what, like, you don't have to understand the ins and outs and nuances and ad creatives and testing cadences and all that, but just understand enough to be dangerous on it, to make sure that you're partnered with a good person. So long story short, I hope that helps. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions, anything I can help with, but I'm excited to hang out with you guys.
Do you normally just run ads on YouTube? Because I've seen you on YouTube videos before. Like,
Oh, really?
before. Yeah.
I ran YouTube ads for like 30 days. So I might have caught you at the right time. Yeah, I just post organically.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
now. YouTube ads are the most expensive on the front end. So it wasn't an opportunity I wanted to deploy right away, but as you spend into YouTube ads, you get more profitable. It's opposite with Facebook. So with Meta, you can start earlier, and the smaller budget you have, the more profitable you're gonna be if you crack it. YouTube ads, you have to spend into it. So it's a big learning curve, and we're spending a lot. We're spending we started at, our testing budget was $750 a day, and then we kind of were like, what we're getting back, it just doesn't make sense. So just continuing to run Instagram and Facebook ads. Yeah. Yeah.
Johnny, could you speak about your journey into actually getting into like self-generating?
Yeah.
I mean, you talk. I mean, everyone that kind of knows what you do. But,
Yeah.
Like, can you talk about like the struggles you have with buying leads? Because I think, I mean, I haven't, because you've been managing my shit for over just what 2 years now, and I haven't bought any leads since, just because I was so sick of dealing with vendors and the inconsistency, especially in the NP market.
Yeah.
Right.
The reality is you can learn a lot on YouTube. I mean, there's everything out there in YouTube land, but it's a matter of like what's your cost for time, and also like how much is specific to your situation. And I'll just share, like, as a person who creates content, I'm gonna share the most specific advice as humanly possible, but I can't be like, Max in Florida, you're at 30 to 50,000 a month to be able to get to 100,000 a month. This is exactly what you need to do, because I don't know your previous experience, right? And so there's specificity that comes from getting somebody to be able to help you with it. I think a lot of, when you're starting out, you just want to make like tests, right? So don't expect it to be like, okay, You spend $1,000. It's not like buying leads. You're setting yourself up to be able to provide, like to put this proper systems in place to grow. And so I see a lot of people come, it's like gambling, right? There's people who make a ton of money gambling, but most people don't use enough money with the house, and the house is always gonna win, right? And so if you're not strategic enough, and if you don't spend enough money, you're just kind of, your odds are gonna be not in your favor, if that makes sense. So you have to be willing, your first $1,000 that you spend on Facebook ads, just consider it gone. So that's number one. I see too many people give up too fast on running Facebook ads because you have to test and you have to get data, and your first $1,000 are just to get data to see what direction you should go. Because I run ads and there's the creatives are killing on one account, and I go to a different account and they're trash. But then the one that was horrible on this account is crushing on this one. So you have to kind of just spend money, be willing to buy the data, and then make decisions based on the data. And a lot of times it's like, okay, what's your cost per acquisition on that? But then it's going down to, okay, typically you could see lead cost first, and then you'll see that turn into cost per acquisition. But I've seen the opposite, right? Double the cost per lead, and then the cost to acquire is lower as well. So you just have to track your data religiously. That's the number. Like if you guys left with anything, it'd just be like track your numbers. So if you guys need help with that, let me know, and I'd be happy to help or talk to other people that are really good at it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing everybody's, or at least some people would be curious on that. What can you say more about that? Like,
Yeah.
What do you use to?
So testing wise, start one campaign. I have my
More on the data tracking. Like,
data tracking. All right, cool. So what specifically? Sales, marketing, like what side?
on kind of the cost per acquisition.
Yeah. What product are you selling?
I'm mostly doing term, but it's mixed up with everything for my lead source. So
Okay.
full spectrum, FEX, and I think just to the room, we're all across the board.
Yeah.
So,
And then for you, are you doing mainly simplified issue or
underwritten.
no? Underwritten? Okay. What's your average case size?
Average probably.
Do you know roughly?
Yeah, 1,500 to 2, somewhere in there.
Okay,
I'd say.
cool. And then are you generating them like within ads or like buying leads
I'm
for
buying
that
leads
or?
right now,
Okay, cool.
but
Um,
definitely entertaining.
Yeah, so I would say for that, you're talking, and just to clarify your question, you're wanting to know what numbers you should be tracking, right?
And how to do it. Like,
How to do it.
well, yeah,
So
just
at a base level on the sales side, I would be tracking how many dials you're making, how many like connections you're having. So like just make sure you define each of these. So how many dials you're making, what actually counts as a connection or talk. So like if you use, say for Kixie, right? A connection, it's off because it's a voicemail. It counts a voicemail, so it's like more so an internal thing that you're gonna track. Like, okay, if I get past this section, part of the script, or if I get past, if I talk to the person or whatever you define it, make sure that it's the same, right? So contact, your presentation rate. How many people I make 100 dials, I get in contact with 10 people, and I'm talking and I present to 3, right? Make sure you have your presentation rate on point, and then you go to your close rate, right? So you want to define your close rate. Close rate can mean a lot of different things. Close rate can mean, did you sell the person? Close rate could be, did you issue the policy? Close rate could be, did you get paid on the policy? So on. So you want to make sure that these are all in sync, and just make sure you're the same every single time. So, and track your dials, contacts, presentation, so on and so forth. And then we have a daily data tracker that we have, and then it calculates what your monthly average has been on the sales side. And then the marketing side, I would just track how much you're spending, right? And then on the sales side, I would also track your average case size. So, and then placement rate, things like that. So on the marketing side, you want to track for you, if you're buying leads, how much you're spending, obviously, and then what's the cost per lead. It's probably a fixed one, or sometimes it's different. So how much you spent on that, and then how many sales, again, this is the cost per acquisition wise, you want to make sure it's the same. So are you counting an issued policy? Are you counting a sold policy? Like, what are you counting? And then use that and you divide how much you spent by that number, and that'll give you your cost to acquire. So your cost to acquire, because it's your case is higher, 150, you're not going to abide by that, right? I would be cool with getting like a $250 to $300 because you're still at a 5x on written business, and depending on your comp, I don't know what your comp is on fully underwritten, that still is really solid. And so a lot of people, like if you're at a 3x on in commissions, right? If you're at a 3x on commissions, scale it up to about a 2x, and then optimize. So that's another thing with marketing is you just want to scale into it and then optimize on the back end. It's more important to just make sure you're making consistent sales, and then there's little tweaks that you could make with the whatever the bottleneck is, right? Are you not with the data? Now you can read it back and be like, okay, if Max and I see an agent that we coach, they're making 300 dials, but they got I don't know, say realistic probably 15 to they're working agencies, right? Say they get 15 contacts, but they're only getting into presentation with 3 people. Like that's horrible. So we need to work on your upfront objections. Now we can actually isolate the real problem. Let's role play. Okay, how do you overcome the call me back later? How are you overcoming? I already got it taken care of. What are you actually saying on that? We can role play. Boom, let's get your contact rate up. And then, okay, they're getting really solid presentations, right? But they're not closing. Why are you not closing? Right? Are you getting a think about it? Are you getting a partner objection? Or like what kind of objection are you getting? Is it logistical? Is it money? Like what's actually happening? Let's role play. Now you isolate, you figure out that bottleneck, you solve it, and then you scale. So at each point, this is where you can break down a cost per, like a return on ad spend or your ROI can be so many different things. It's so many different factors. So you tracking your numbers allows you to break every single part down and just be a scientist. Okay, what actually in this whole spectrum is it? Do I need to get the leads cheaper? Or do I need to close better? And there's a whole spectrum in there. And so that's why tracking your numbers is so important, because then you isolate what's the sinking, where am I losing money, right? And then solve that, and then you scale, and you could instantly become more profitable just by doing that. So if you need a tracker, I can give you one. I just need your email, and I'll send it over to you.
Yeah.
So, or text it to you, whatever.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
I have a question about something you brought up in there.
What's
just
up?
Like of optimization.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get caught up on like the profitability side of the business, right?
Yeah.
So like maximizing my profit based off the leads that I get. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? I'm spending maybe a little less on leads because I want to pay attention to the leads that I currently have. And maybe I'm writing a little less business, but in my mind I've been seeing, like, just for an example, like a 3x profit, right? If I spend this much, and I'm going to make a 3x profit. Did I just catch you here? I can't talk. Did you just say that if you're doing like a 3x, that you actually want to scale that?
Yeah.
And bring it down to like a 2x, and that will optimize it a little bit more?
So this is where, yes, if you're spending $1 and making $1 and 1.1 back, technically you should scale that. But it depends what scale you're at, right? If you're at a scale of you're actually spending $1 and making 3 back, or you're spending 1,000 and making 3,000, then there's something that I'm like, you're not gonna, okay, here's where the unlock was for me, right? I'm not going to pay for a house with what my ROI is, right? I'm not going to. I can't be like, all right, cool. So I'm going through a pre-approval right now. This is why it's so like in my mind. I can't.
On Monday, so.
Oh, you do? Congrats. Can you get me approved? It's like, what are you talking about, dude? How much money are you making? So that's what I'd be thinking is like, how much money am I actually making? And so it depends what scale you're at. How much are you spending a week or a month on average?
I'm getting caught up in some of like the agency roles, right? So I'm not spending what I should, but like targets would be about $5.5 grand a month.
Yeah. So, okay.
And so like I'm not hitting that, right? And a part
Yeah.
of that is kind of focusing on the profitability side
Yeah.
as well. But it's like I think it kind of clicked in my mind where it's like I would net more if I'm less profitable, just because I'm optimizing the system by spending more, closing more deals. Sure, I might be leaving some of the leads, but I'd have more lead flow.
Yeah.
If I brought that profitability down by, 30%.
There's a lot of factors that play into this as well. And I would say so I'm super into fitness. There's a lot of jacked people here, which is cool to see. But what I would say is there's seasons that you're going to bulk and there's seasons that you're going to cut. So you got to figure out what season you're in, because it might be really good, especially as you're taking on more people. Maybe you're less profitable, but your morale's higher. So you're actually making more overrides because your agents are like, dude, this is the guy. Like he actually knows what he's talking about, because I saw him on Zoom. He got a $1,500 sale, and he actually got a call me back later objection right before that I got hung up on earlier, or I let that person off the phone. So that's where you have to figure out what season you're in as well, because is it a cutting season or is it a bulking season to where you're like, hey, I'm willing to spend more, and maybe you dish off the leads to agents, and maybe you just call the brand new ones. And you dish off, and maybe that's a way that you can increase your ROI on the back end too, because you're spending more on the front end. So you have to figure out, okay, what season am I actually in? And because you could go into a 2x return, but if you have a back end that's really built out, or a way that, hey, I'm gonna spend more on the front end, my profitability up front is not gonna be great. Maybe it's a 2.5x, but I have a really solid system in place that new agents that don't have money that come in, they're gonna work these aged leads that are not really aged. I only called them 3 times. So they're gonna call them, and boom, now we app split 50-50. Now you just instantly got back your 2.5x turned into a 5x just because they're calling. And it's a win-win because they were broke, they couldn't afford leads. Now they're training up, they're listening to you, and you just added to your profitability. Now you can continue spending on the front end. So you also have to figure out what your time frame is on that too. Are you doing it in a 30-day, or are you measuring in a 90-day window? Because that also can play a big effect. So I would say figure out what season you're in. And I would say one thing I've realized is, especially as we're in a heavy, okay, we're gonna grow this agency, I'm like, I need to get back into the field. That's just the reality of it. And closing a deal yesterday was just the morale was just insanely higher. It was just way, way more, because people are like, oh my gosh, he actually closed a deal in front of me. It's like, yeah, because I know how to do this. And so I think you have to just figure out what season you're in, and then also what timeline are you measuring on? Because you might spend 10K this month, and you might not get that back for 90 days or 120 days, but you have a really solid training system in place that now these new agents are coming in and you're getting that ROI back, and that's actually how you're gonna continue to increase your profitability. I mean, that's a way that when I made a huge mistake that I wasn't testing creatives constantly, brought Max on, a top producer, and the marketing went to trash. And I was like, dude, I don't have good leads for you. He's like, dude, what's happening with the lead flow? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm gonna go out of my pocket and let's just split 50-50 and let's just figure this out. I'm willing to take the risk. I know you're a good producer. I know it's the leads, it's really not you. So let's figure this out. And so then profitability netted $45,000 that month, right? So it's just kind of like you have to figure out what time horizon you're looking at, and then also what season you're in for that. So
I really like the word optimize.
Yeah.
I think I've been optimizing for profit margins rather than
Yeah.
optimizing for net profit.
yeah,
And that's
Yeah.
what I was getting at is I might be getting higher profit margins, but what's going to result the highest net profit?
Yeah.
So that really helped me.
it's an interesting thing, because you can brag on 80% net margins, but Walmart is their net margins are 5%. I'd rather be the CEO of Walmart than be at an 80% margin on 10K. It's you're netting 8K a month. Who cares?
Earlier you were saying, you wouldn't scale too quickly. How long would you say, say somebody's, 6 months, a year in the industry, they're starting a self-gen system, right? And how long would you say they should go just focused on personal pen before they even look at maybe 1 or 2 agents,
Yeah.
let alone scaling?
It's going to be different per agent. I would say for the questions you want to ask yourself is, what's your risk tolerance? That's another thing, because it's going to look different if you have 6 figures liquid and you can weather 3 months of training. It's just an investment into your business. Can you weather that? Or do I need to really focus on production? And then as I continue to build this, I'm just going to take on 1 agent and help them out. One of the things that really helped me with this, as far as training and producing, is what's cool about virtual now is you can just hop on Zoom and just sell in front of them. And then also listen to them. And so what I would do is I would sell, and then if the other person got on the line that I was really focused on and intentional with, hey, I'm going to invest in you and invest my time into you, what I did was every time he got on the phone, I would just listen and I would just type in the chat. Or if you have like a Kixie solution or a dialing solution, you can whisper on the phone, which is cool. And only the person can hear you. So if us three are having a conversation right now, you're talking to him and you're trying to sell him, I can go on and be like, hey, say this, say this, say this, and only you can hear me. So then your tonality is perfect or whatever, right? So it's not perfect, but you know what to say. And so that's one thing that is really cool that we use for our new agents. Like, we go and we use the whisper feature, and then we can also go talk to the client as well. So they could bring you on and be like, hey, you should talk and say, hey, I'm gonna bring my senior benefit manager on or whatever, senior supervisor on, just to be able to make sure we're headed in the right direction. Boom, you go on and you can help them close. That's another way. But live call, so I was talking to the top guy at Gym Launch, like the closer at Gym Launch. I don't know if you guys know, as Alex Hormozzi's company that he sold. His top closer, him and I ended up getting close. Just, again, social media and just seeing each other. Anyways, he told me when Alex was training them in their peak, when they grew from like a few 100,000 to like 2.5 million a month, the number one, like the only training... Like, dude, that is weird. The most interesting guy. His only training was listening to Alex's live sales calls. That's literally all the training was. There was no built-out sales at all. So the best example is going to be you. So that's one thing that you can help offload. You're going to do the work anyway. You need to sell anyway. And it's the best way to train them too. And then what happens is right after you get off the call, you break down what just happened or do a call review on your call. Be like, hey, this is what I said, and train them real time. And it builds conviction in them, like, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, because not only did he do it and we role play and we trained on this, like there's instant conviction and more buy-in that's going to happen. So for that, I would say just identify what your risk tolerance is. And I just try to just scale way too quick and bring on 10, 15 people at once that probably weren't going to make it anyway. I would find like somebody who's self-motivated, driven, and give them, John Wetmore probably talks about this a lot, he probably said it, but he's like, set small expectations and make sure they hit them. And just continue to pour into them if they keep hitting these expectations. When are you gonna show up on Zoom? 8 a.m., all right, cool. They show up late, they don't show, that's not somebody I'm gonna trust to be able to do it. But if they show up day in and day out, that's somebody I'm gonna trust to be able to pour time into that's worth it. So I'd just say hire in twos. Start with 2, start with 1, make sure they're successful, help them out, and then build that camaraderie, build standards, build processes in the business. And then what's nice is that's the best place to be, because you're training 2, 3 people at a time, and you can build culture. At that point, it's so important to build culture, because if your culture is not established or your standards aren't high, and they can no-show or they don't hop on Zoom at a certain time, or they're not filling out their end-of-day reports, or they're not posting their sales, you bring new agents in and they're not going to follow what they're saying. So you can set it really quick with 3 people, 2 other people and you. That's the standard, and the new people that you bring in, and if that's the standard and people that come in don't do that, they don't belong. They're going to they're going to self-disqualify themselves. And so if you set a really high standard, that's one thing I really wanted to make sure that with Max and I, when we started working together, our standards are high. He's showing up every single day, 8 a.m. If I'm not up, he's like, dude, open the Zoom room. But that set really high expectations so that when new agents came on, dude, where are your numbers for the day? Why didn't you send in your numbers? Because this is the culture. This is the standard. And if you don't do it, you don't belong. That's how you want to build it. And what's cool is with 3 people, they could be your friends. You're doing cool stuff. Like it's a really good time. And so I would just embrace that time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are questions you ask when you are recruiting? Like when we talked with John, I kind of asked a similar
Yeah.
thing. That's kind of the stage that I'm at, where I'm wanting to grow a lot more and starting to bring people on. I had about 10. Kind of have like 1 now. Forgot the guy today, but so what are questions you ask when you are with like people and trying to recruit, and just certain things that you look for within an agent?
So I'm not the most qualified. I would listen to what John said. He's run way more interviews and way more successful on that end. The short amount of recruiting I've done is, I can't stress enough, like building a personal brand is so important because people will filter themselves out like just by that. And I think like there's an abundance of people that just come and talk to me, and like we have conversations all day with people, and so it's like I kind of have the pick of the like who is actually going to work with me, and there's like a true abundance. Like I actually can't take on hundreds of people who just like crash. So I think that's one thing that just is huge, and Dylan does an amazing job of that. So watch what he does. But I think as far as that goes, I just want to see somebody who's an actual A player, right? So let's just identify what an A player is. Somebody who's actually going to show up and stick to their word. Somebody who's actually going to work and willing to go through a learning curve, understanding that, and also not so quick on, hey, I need this now. Like understanding. I remember when Max and I started working together, he said something that was so, like I'd never heard anybody, nobody ever say that like has joined my team. And it was like, he's like, if I don't give this 5 years, I didn't actually give it a shot. And I was like, wow. And he's like, dude, if Bet David's gonna say that and he exited for hundreds of millions, I'm gonna listen to that advice. And I think if you have somebody that's willing to see the long term and understand, you're gonna spend money. You have to buy leads. That's just the reality of it. You obviously teach them that. But if they can ride those out and ride that, like actually go through that learning curve, that's somebody I want to do. So like number one is making sure that you're setting proper expectations and they're meeting them. And then also extremely coachable. That's somebody, I'm not trying to work with somebody who's toxic that, yeah, they might make some money, but like you're toxic to the whole culture. You think you're above everybody when the standard is here, you're not reporting your numbers. It's a small thing, but what happens when everybody else moves away from a carrier because this carrier's placement is bad and you have a lot of influence in the group? You're just a cancer, right? So that's not somebody that you want to have a part of the group. And so if you have somebody that's coachable, somebody that's working, it's just simple things on that end, then you probably will be able to see that. And they have a long-term vision. They know where they want to go. That's somebody that I'd want for sure. Not willing to just give up on anything. They get a chargeback, they're out. It's like, dude, you should you're gonna have hardship in general. If you were to start a real estate business, yeah, you might not have a chargeback, but there's gonna be other challenges that you're gonna face there. You can go into solar, you're gonna face the same things. You can start an SMMA, you're gonna face the same problems. You can do copywriting, same thing. There's gonna be challenges. This is just the cost of doing this business. This is the hard that you have to go to succeed in this business, because every business is hard. Every business has their challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, I don't know, does anybody else have any questions? Last thing I'll say, just to wrap up, and by the way, these are awesome questions. If you guys have any more, let me know. But the last thing I'll say is, political or not, like, this is a golden era of insurance. This is a golden era for, if you are trying to build a business and sell, this is the golden time. Because right now in insurance, we are in a consolidation period where there's been a lot of people that have come in and only a few are going to rise. Only a few are actually going to make money. But there's other opportunities that I've gotten and paid advice to people who are doing millions per month in their businesses at 25, 26 years old. And they're like, dude, it's insane what you can actually do in life insurance because of how the business is actually structured. So we're in a golden era because right now there's not enough private equity to make this too corporate-y, but it's also, on the other side, there's a lot of opportunity as well for private equity to buy in the next 3 to 5 years. We may not ever get a time in this because there's a lot of people that are coming in. We're consolidating more as an industry. And as that happens, more big players are gonna come. There's more big people that are coming in and dumping private equity on private equity. And when an Integrity, when an AmeriLife sells out, it's just gonna be a really tough place to be. And so right now, when these bigger places, I don't know if Integrity is gonna sell, I don't know, but like these bigger pieces, this is really the golden era of insurance. And if you don't capitalize on the next 4 to 6 years, there may not ever be a time in the industry that's better than this. So I would recommend capitalize on it, take the big shot. that's what personally, like, I've decided, like, hey, I'm shifting all my focus to go for that, and I'm just going to risk everything. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. So anyways, I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for that. And yeah.